Sitting pretty on that blue side. Oski bangs it to Atto. Oh, that double down for the second! The man is on fire!
This is Rocket League. It's, well, we don't really have to tell you what Rocket League is, do we? Even if you've never played the game, you know that it can be summarized in 2 words. Car, soccer. It's a simple concept with a deceptively simple solution. But there's nothing simple about its success. So how did a gimmick game boost its way into our hearts, minds, and professional esports tournaments? If you want to know the answer to that question, stick around. And while you're at it, give this video a like and subscribe to Nerdstalgic Gaming for more content just like this. When Psyonix's Rocket League first came onto the scene in 2015, expectations were about as low as you could possibly get. The development team, which consisted of between 8 and 12 people, wasn't what one might call highly experienced. Outside of a scrappy PS3 shooter title, a strange underwater collectathon, and a couple of mobile games, Psyonix had only done one project of note. Its name was... hang on a second. Its name was Supersonic Acrobatic Rocket-Powered Battle Cars, or SARP BC for short. The game started out as Twisted Metal meets Smash Bros. With jet-propelled vehicles. Tentatively titled Crash Course, the object of the game was to just bump people off the maps. Of course, there were other various game modes, but this would very much become a practice run for what SARP BC would eventually become. In 2008, when the game came out, it had settled into its life as a chaotic vehicle-based sports game. If that description doesn't sell you on the concept, then you're just like everyone else. SARP BC totally bombed. Reviews were middling and nobody played it. Presumably because by the time they finished reading the game's title, Rocket League had already been released. Though SARP BC came out a full 7 years before Rocket League, its influence on the eventual gaming icon is clear. Despite Psyonix calling Rocket League a sequel, they're practically the same game. However, when you see the level of polish that was carried over into Rocket League, this act of copy and pasting feels a little bit more forgivable. Even though proper design began in 2013, the tiny development team had already spent years honing the core mechanics, gameplay features, and physics that would eventually become known to the gaming masses. In an interview with Sunless Khan, co-studio head Corey Davis told us that they had originally settled on a vehicle-based game because of Psyonix's founder, Dave Hagewood. According to Davis, his boss was just really good at implementing cars and their respective physics into video games. So that's what they stuck with. After artist Adam Beckwith added a soccer ball to the equation, everything just clicked. Controlling a car in Rocket League is a precise matter, and it's not easy to do well. The basic controls are intuitive, and the rules of the game are straightforward and purposefully loose. The intent was to offer an easy point of entry for any skill level. And they succeeded, because you don't have to know how to play Rocket League to enjoy it. Just chase the ball. That's literally it. Simple fun. The more intense mechanics like drifting, jumping, boosting, and air rolling were made to feel almost technical. The physics of the game reward the player for learning how to use them correctly through a fun and responsive gameplay experience. You can almost feel the weight of the car, and once you play enough, you can start to accurately predict how the weighted object is going to collide with the giant bouncing ball. From there, you can start playing around with higher level tactics. That's where the esports scene comes in. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, putting the cart before the horse, or the ball before the car. Let's talk about Rocket League's launch, because right from the rocket-powered jump, the game was a hit. Releasing as a free title for PlayStation Plus members, this game about bashing cars into an oversized ball immediately caught the attention of a lot of people, about 100,000 of them to be more specific. Considering Sony had only expected about 80,000 concurrent players on the high end, this was great news for them, and also terrible news for the players. The game servers overloaded, and so did Rocket League's official website as people tried and failed to get in on the action. The Psyonix team immediately went into damage control, but the game was just too great. Something else had to be done for the affected players. In the words of Psyonix marketing VP, Jeremy Dunham,
"The only thing we could do is tell them the truth. We're working on it as quickly as we can. We're going to have it up as quickly as we can. And here's what we're going to do to make it up to you."
Dunham told Kinda Funny Games that the devs wanted to make some kind of apology for the launch issues. On top of constantly updating players on their progress until the problem had been resolved, they also created a few downloadable cosmetics for people who'd been affected by the outages. This method of communication with their burgeoning community would set the tone for the rest of the early years, and it did not go unnoticed or unappreciated. The fans really started to rally around Psyonix as much as they did around Rocket League. the game was spread through other platforms soon after. It became an important figure in the battle for cross-play compatibility. In just 8 short months, Rocket League was boasting about 12 million players across its PC, PS4, and Xbox One versions. And while it didn't stay free forever, Psyonix always made it clear that they wanted to keep things affordable, but with an actual price tag or in-game purchases. The $20 price tag seemed like much more enticing for those who felt they couldn't drop $40 on a AAA new release. From there, Rocket League was welcomed into the world of esports, where it still excels today, due largely to how much effort and personal resources the developers have been putting into maintaining Rocket League's championship series. By January of 2018, the game had ballooned to a total of 40 million players, and it was all thanks to the shockingly small dev team at Psyonix. It seemed like Rocket League could do no wrong, but with this level of opportunity, it was bound to attract attention from other game devs and publishers. We all know where this story is headed. In 2019, Epic Games bought out Psyonix, and the community largely treated it like the end times. And at the time, it definitely felt like it could be. Anytime an indie studio gets scooped up by a larger publisher, it's cause for concern. Epic Store exclusivity was bad enough, and then there's the threat of over-monetization. But it was the fear of losing that strong community connection with the developers that was really worrying. As games get bigger and their publishers start demanding more output, the indie energy usually starts to fade away. Actions like giving launch players free cosmetics and personally overseeing the details of their esports series might start to become less and less frequent. And considering the relative lack of these new features and updates since the Epic buyout, there's some truth to this unfortunate idea. Rocket League saw an unprecedented rise in players between 2020 and 2021, when everyone was just inside for some reason. But it's also seen a rise in bots, smurfing, and toxicity among fans since then. That's the sad state of affairs for the game that was created for and encourages pure dumb fun. But such is the fate of popular online games. To say that Rocket League is dying due to the dwindling post-pandemic numbers feels disingenuous. Rocket League still supports a very healthy, casual, competitive gaming ecosystem, but it's changed. A lot. In that same Kind of Funny Games interview we used earlier, Jeremy Dunham had this to say. The problem with communities in general, and how they're treated, is they're just treated like bouncing boards. There's no level of transparency or communication. We know that that's a mistake because if we don't have a healthy community and one that's involved, they're going to move on. Psyonix is a company of more than 130 people now, a far cry from the humble team of 12 that gave us Rocket League in the first place. To give them their much-deserved credit, they still constantly update players on the status of bugs and connection problems. Though it took several weeks, they did bring the ban hammer down on a significant number of bot accounts and are still actively working to combat them in ranked play. And they pump out content on a schedule that's probably ruled more by Epic than anyone at Psyonix. They may not nearly be as attentive and communicative with the player base as they used to be, but they're not totally silent either. You might even see some of the devs playing together in-game, which helps us all to remember that these are people behind the scenes. Psyonix made a game out of nothing more than car models and a stellar physics engine, and it was great. But that's not what made Rocket League a success. It was the care and attention of its team that elevated this gimmicky game of car soccer to its highest heights. It was Psyonix's passion for their work and for the relationship with the community. The indie energy that produced and fueled Rocket League may have faded, but it's still there. It's there in the way that they run the championship series. It's there in the responses to big issues. And it's there in its 15-year-old foundation. Maybe one day we'll see a full return to form in the way that Rocket League handles its community relations. But for now, we're just happy playing car soccer. Well, that's it for this episode of Nerdstalgic Gaming. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more videos just like this.